All right. We're going to reconvene the public session of the January 17th board meeting. Happy New Year, everybody, and looking forward to a great 2019 with the team. So, Roy, excuse me. We need to approve the minutes. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting? Thomas? Second, anybody? Okay. Any discussion or commentary or edits? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. Okay. Dr.
Ready?
Montesano.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. Echo that, what John said. Looking forward to this new year and the second half of our school year. Just a couple things. If you recall, earlier this year, we talked a little bit about plagiarism and cheating and what was going to happen, what was going to go on, how we're going to address some of that. So I'd like to give you just a quick, brief update about what's been going on and where that is. And rather than call it plagiarism cheating, we're going to be calling it the Academic Integrity Committee. So there has been a committee meeting to talk about the issue. Involves parents and teachers, some students. Tom Wilson and Ann Meyer as well are involved in that committee. They've already met 3 times and beginning to draft a new policy and update the current policy that we have and draft some new things in there. Nothing specific as of yet, but I do know they're working on that. They've gathered information from other institutions and have had students share what they observe, which I think is pretty enlightening. And they're hoping to get some specifics drafted at their January 22nd meeting coming up. And as they have new things coming up, once they get it in good form, we'll be sharing it with the board as well. But some of the points of discussion the committee has been thinking about, for example, would be guidelines for group work, shared process, being aware that cheating and or plagiarism look different in different forums and needs a wider definition in broader terms. And just like with digital footprint and social media, students need continual education about how to cite material, how to avoid plagiarism, and what we really mean by cheating in the different classrooms, because cheating in one class might be different than cheating in a different class. So we need to clarify some of that. There's an understanding that even some of our seniors are still having difficulty knowing how to cite things correctly, and we want to make sure they're leaving us with that knowledge. So we need to do a better job of that. And some real strong ties between academic integrity and consequences. Making connections to AP Honor Society, other connections, and if a student breaks the rules for these classes, there needs to be a consistent consequences that match. So if a student does something in one class, it's going to be a consistent follow-up in another class, whether it happens in another class or not. So I read through some of the notes that Ann and Tom shared with me from their last meeting, and I thought some of the student perspectives that were shared were to me interesting, because I think they have a lot of insights as students. They know that they have access to an incredible amount of resources and shared documents, more than I think we ever thought they did. They also mentioned that past assignments are all readily available to the students. They mentioned that the assignment type, for example, if you're doing worksheets, fill in the blank things, that can be more tempting for students to copy each other's work. So somewhat about the quality of the assignment and the type of assignment may lend itself to being more tempted to fill in the blanks. They know that if assignment comes from a textbook, they can just go online and get that assignment somewhere, anywhere. There are some gray areas in the way students understand and think about cheating. Collaboration, for example, and cheating are very difficult for some of our students to fully comprehend. And the role of electronics is new, and we need to be clear about what our expectations are moving forward. So, I find it very interesting. So here, just an example that Ann and I were talking about today in a particular science class where a student there was a lab work done, and all the students submitted the same exact lab assignment. and the teacher called him on it and said that's an example of cheating. And the one student who apparently must have done most of the work was quite upset about that, but willingly shared the information with the other students so that they didn't consider cheating, right? So, we need to have a discussion about that.
Well, don't we really, because you mentioned collaboration and how difficult that is to define, and, what's okay in this class may not be okay in that class. And you need to be really careful about bright line rules here, do you not? Because I've always tried to follow a rule. Don't tell someone not to do something that they're going to do anyway, because that puts you and them in a untenable position.
Sure.
So for students, and obviously we don't tolerate cheating or plagiarism, those are bad things, right? Right? They are bad. So,
Are you asking, or?
well, I certainly never had anyone help me with fill in the blanks. And the statutes run if I did, but in all seriousness, we need, because the result of this, and the rules that you write here are, as that young person was upset, you're going to wind up branding people with a very serious term. And if you are labeling as problematic that which kids have done and will do, no matter what the rule you write is, and you label that as wrong, I think there's more of a problem with your rule than there is with the kids, because if kids are going to be kids, and in certain regards, and particularly in collaborative situations that we, by the way, encourage.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I just wanted to add to what Tom said. I think he points out something important, which is in the gray area, we have to use these as teaching opportunities as opposed to punishment opportunities. So if that's an example, then, we some have to come up with a way to use that
Sure.
as a way to educate people how to cite things, how to work together, how to do whatever it is that's relevant. But there's some that are really bright line, and there's some that are gray, and then there's some that are perhaps not infractions. But in the big middle, we need to use it as an educational opportunity.
And and I know they've talked about the issue of intent as well, and where does that play into all of this? Was the intent of that person to allow others to cheat, if you will, in that term, or is it really just to share information? And there's some of that going on too. So,
And Roy, is there anything to be learned from the higher education world? Because I would think they have been dealing with this maybe longer than we have.
yeah. I don't know if they've looked into it, but perhaps you guys can speak to that.
Yeah, we actually, through one of the parents committee, we have been put in contact with the person at Sarah Lawrence that organizes their presentation to their incoming freshman class. That person is actually gonna come share with us what they do and what their research librarians do to help students understand plagiarism. So not only have we looked at policies, we're also looking at how, at the next level, students are educated about this process to see if we can take anything and incorporate it ourselves.
Perfect. Thank you.
So anyway, we look forward to more coming out of the committee work that they're doing now. So just to give you an idea of where it is currently. And my only item, there's a number of retirements going on this evening, and I know that Rachel will be speaking to that issue in a little bit, but I want to express my appreciation to all the retirees and for their commitment and dedication to our school district and our community, and certainly want to wish them a very happy, healthy, and long retirement as they move forward to their next chapters. So that's enough.
Yes. Dr. Ketke's up.
I'm sorry, yes, Mara Ketke, Dr. Ketke is with us tonight, and she's going to enlighten us on the power of grammar this evening.
So I'm actually very excited to speak to you about some new work we're doing around grammar. We were snowed out the last time, so I'm happy to be here this evening. As the daughter of an English teacher, I have a particular history with grammar, and I'm very excited to talk to you about some of the work we've been doing and some new approaches to the teaching of grammar. It's important to mention that this work is in context with the work we're doing with Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. The curriculum leaders and I approached this work, and it was influenced by a book called The Power of Grammar by Mary Aaron Worth and Vicki Venton. Mary is a deputy director of the project, so this is in line with the other literacy work we've been engaged in over a few years. So why teach grammar? The book makes a point in their research that grammar is intimately linked with power, and that grammar is a transformative agent and a way to strengthen and extend student voice in writing. And we actually talked about that for quite a while in the curriculum leader group, what that means. And it's hard to get kids to not understand it as just, oh, now I have to go back and follow these rules, but really as something they need to think about, incorporating it into their written work appropriately as a form of empowerment for extending their voice through writing. The book talks quite a bit about something called stickiness. And by that, they mean teaching grammar in ways that will stick, so that you are teaching students rules of grammar and conventions of grammar that will actually appear in their writing. And what they say about that is thinking about grammar far earlier in the writing process is an important piece when you think about stickiness. And we cannot teach grammar in lasting ways if we teach it as a way to fix student writing, especially writing they view as already complete. Students need to construct knowledge of grammar by practicing it as part of what it means to write well, particularly how it helps them create a voice and engages the reader on the page. So the lessons that they have researched and designed and thought about really contribute to the idea of stickiness, which is not just that students understand the rule in isolation, but it actually appears in their written work in an effort to engage the reader. In addition to the literature and the research presented in the book, we looked at some of the position statements from the National Council of Teachers of English. And they make a few points which I believe you'll see reflected in the work that we've done. The first is to be selective. They encourage communities to sort of look at grammar skills and decide as a community of teachers and educators what are the most important rules that we want to make sure our students master over the K-9 experience. And they point out that you can't really teach everything and teach everything well. So it's important to really prioritize as a community what you feel is most important. Again, the second suggestion is to show students how to apply it in their writing, but also recognize it in their reading, how authors use grammar to propel their message. And again, they're pretty clear on this in terms of NCTE recommendations. Practice is the most meaningful when anchored in the context of written assignments. So to practice it in isolation is not what NCTE recommends. To practice it in the context of your writing is the best way to contribute to stickiness or application. So we began really looking at some grammar conventions, and we decided as a community what is urgent, meaning what are the most important skills that we want to be sure our students master. And by master, we mean we can see evidence of them using those conventions appropriately in their written work. So here you see a list. It goes from K to 9th grade, and I will make this list public. But this was a discussion we had with curriculum leaders that represent all grade levels as well as middle school and high school. And there are approximately 40 skills represented here. And in each particular grade, you see anywhere from, I want to say, 2 to 6 skills that each grade level is responsible for. There is some overlap, But again, you're looking at identifying which skills are focused upon in which grade and where mastery is expected. Okay, so how is it taught? Once we identified which skills were most appropriate for which grade, we looked to the literature and the research to consider how we would teach it to contribute to stickiness. And there are 4 types of lessons that we look to and plan for in terms of teaching grammar. One is demonstration, where the teacher demonstrates the skill to the class. And they are actually encouraged to teach it as part of the revision process and share it by modeling it in their own writing. So for example, if you create a story that requires you to use the rule verb tense and control of time, teach students the rule, show them how it applies to your own piece of writing as a model. That is actually the most prevalent type of the 4 lessons I'll mention tonight and occurs the most often for every skill. The second type is apprenticeship, where students are actually studying mentor texts or pieces of text to think about how the author uses grammar as a source of voice and power. So they are looking at written work in their reading and thinking about how the author is using that convention to make their writing more interesting to read. The third is inquiry, deconstruct texts for usage to deduce the rules. So for example, you might see in a primary grades classroom, students looking at a piece of text, circling all the capital letters, and then as a class, let's think of what might be the rules for capitalization. So it's an inquiry-based approach where students are really exploring it. The teacher is working with them to restate the rule. And extravaganza, which I'll show tonight, which is sort of a student-centered approach, celebration. Students create sort of silly videos and skits to help remind the students of the rules that they're being held responsible for. So these are really the 4 types of lessons, with demonstration being the most common. However, it is a goal as we continue to roll out this curriculum that each of the skills associated with each grade are taught in all 4 ways. And that, the research suggests, contributes to the most retention and application in writing. Okay. So this is an example of an extravaganza. I believe these are some middle school students who are teaching the following rule with a short, sort of silly video. Here's the rule about joining 2 complete sentences using conjunctions and, but, or, yet, so, and nor, and using a comma. And then when joining a complete sentence with an incomplete sentence or cause, using the conjunctions and, but, or, yet, so, and nor, do not use a comma.
Sam was not happy.
Nor amused.
No comma. Julie was enraged by the comment,
And she refused to accept an apology.
comma.
So we're still working on the celebratory part, but I have no doubt that they will get there. Okay, so just to share a bit of a timeline of this work so you know how we're rolling it out. I never forget that rule now. I just think of comma, no comma. We began this discussion in June, as I said, by sharing the list and deciding what was important and organizing it by grade level. Teachers began to really look at their units of study and think about natural fits. So which skills would be most appropriate for which unit of study in writing? and then consider where they want to place the inquiry and apprenticeship lessons after the skill is introduced during direct instruction. Inquiry and apprenticeship generally take more time than direct instruction. Beginning in the fall, they started to create the map, so in which unit, which skill will be addressed, and began to explore and design some lessons. They are currently piloting some lessons. So in June, we have some time to get together as a group to look at what people have drafted and potentially tried with their classes and see, how this is going, with then a full implementation for the 1920 school year beginning, with the units of study that occur in September and October. Another thing, we just received a recommendation from one of our TC consultants that we're hoping to do somewhat soon, is create classroom posters of the conventions that are particular to a certain grade. So for example, in 6th grade, you might see a poster that includes the grammar conventions from K to 5. In the content area classrooms, so science and social studies, so students can also be held accountable to those grammar conventions in their content area writing. So we are in the process of creating those and reaching out to our content area teachers to ask them if they will support us in holding students accountable to the conventions that have been taught and expected to be mastered in the prior grades. So it's very exciting. I think we had a lot of fun with looking at some of these new ways to teach it, and we're really, interested to know if in fact it does what it's intended to do, which is we see these students applying their skills in their written work. They see grammar as part of writing well and writing with power, and it's not really an afterthought, but yet part of the writing process and something they consider from the very beginning. Questions or comments?
I have the obvious question. How will you know if you were successful?
So when the students are scored for their writing through the TC rubrics, language conventions is a row of that rubric. So that is, the grammar is evaluated. And if you recall the data I present pre and post, so they have certain pieces that are coached where you expect to see excellent grammar, but we're actually, good grammar. We're actually going to look at what they do in a post-assessment, which is independent writing, to see reflection of the grammar conventions taught, particularly those that are taught in that unit. So that's where we're really looking to see if it transferred.
Is there any need to, I'm going to use the word catch up, it may not be the right word, but you've got people in the system that
Yeah.
aren't exposed to this, so how do you catch them up?
So I think that's a hard question. I think it's a good question and something we're thinking about. And someone asked me, well, my kids in 10th grade, they're not on, their grade's not on any of these lists.
Right.
I think it has been helpful to do the list by grades so that a 3rd grade teacher, for example, knows what should have been done in K2, what the students should have mastered. And the book makes a really good point about slippage, that we should expect to see some of that, particularly with how often our students, particularly in this technical age, see things incorrectly.
Exactly.
Slippage is a much bigger problem than it even used to be. In a glass half full way, they also suggest that students write more often. The quality of the writing, I think, is, sort of up for debate. But, we have that continuum, so a 3rd grade teacher, for example, knows and can incorporate small group work for reteaching to some of the students who are not showing that they have mastered K-2 skills, for example. And I think the more we get this out there to everyone who helps our students become writers, the better we can all support them in mastering what we have indicated is appropriate.
Thank you.
I was always taught that every class is an English class. So what you're trying to instill through this program, this initiative, is it something that's reinforced with teachers other than just the English teachers? So that, they go to history, and I'm sure Dr. Katz's all over this already, so you don't have to even approach him on it, but history submissions, papers, and the like also are regarded for the use of the grammar.
Yes, so that's why we're getting the posters, trying to get the posters into the classroom so the students are aware, for example, your social studies teacher knows about what you've been instructed in ELA. They might not necessarily teach the grammar lessons, but they can certainly help to hold students accountable for them. And if they're not, that should be reflected in the feedback they receive.
Okay, great.
What happens in 10th through 12th grade?
They mastered them all. So we had Rob Cross involved in this entire process with the K-9 continuum. He's the high school English department chair. He is talking to the entire high school department about this continuum and these types of lessons. We did examples of each type of lesson as part of our meeting. So they are encouraged to also think about conventions that were slated for grade 7, 8, 9, and incorporate that into their instruction as they see fit based on the student writing they see. But again, this is tough because grammar is always something that I think you teach and you spend time on, and often it feels like maybe a lot of kids didn't exactly transfer it to their work. Transference is the goal, and I think through the research around these types of lessons, that's the best shot at it.
Maybe each 9th grader should receive a copy of Strunk and White for their end of year.
Old school, John, old school.
I'm sure it's changed since we did it.
Well, and I also think it's a mindset, right? I mean, even when I was writing my dissertation, I consult with resources to ensure that I'm correct. So even in general, raising their awareness, undoubtedly they might have to review some of these rules at any particular time. But a mindset that grammar is important and speaks to your ability to write powerfully and with voice, teaching, looking at how writers use grammar to write well and in interesting ways and communicate their points, I think also has to be part of it, because I think you're always in a process of, wait a minute, let me just check that I did that correctly, as well you should be.
Thanks, Mara.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
It's tough.
The last item under my report is a draft calendar for the next school year. I think I did share that with everyone, and I'm happy to answer questions or listen to comments if you have any, or things that you want to think about.
What days do you have flexibility as a school for vacation days? Is that dictated by the state?
Well, what's dictated by the state is the Regents rating day. So that tells us what the last day of the school year is going to be. So next...
You work backwards from that.
we work backwards from there, and then it's dependent upon our contract. We have to schedule 186 teacher days, 182 student days.
Can't
and
start
then-
till after Labor Day.
Can't start till after Labor Day. And then you look at, where the holidays fall, the individual holidays, and you kind of figure out what's left. and where you can squeeze everything and it makes the most sense, where you can capture the time.
I do think you should do some good communication about the fact they're going to be in school the entire month of September.
Yeah,
That could be the first time in a long time that that's happened.
that's true.
I could
That's
put
true.
some people
Just
into shock.
September 30th is
Yeah.
the only day, really. Once we start,
Once you start.
you're getting ramp right up very quickly. Yeah.
Wow, that's going to be unpopular.
Question, Roy.
Sure.
In the key, there's a student 2-hour delay.
Yeah.
I don't see that anywhere up there. Is
We-
that, is that, or is that
No, we don't have anything in there. I think that's been on that legend for a while in the event that perhaps we wanted to have a PD day in the morning or something like that, that's there, but we don't have anything scheduled for that.
And can you just clarify the footnote, if fewer than 4 emergency closings, one compensatory?
So in the recent BTA contract, I think that's a new clause, that if you don't use the 4 emergency closing days that are scheduled in, then we would have to close school one of those days, or cancel a superintendent conference day or something like that. It's a comp day for teachers, that teachers would have off.
When would you do that if you had to?
I don't know, depends when it occurs, like, you don't know if you're gonna use them really now until April, so I'd have to look at I don't have my current calendar in front of me to really give you a thought on that, but I don't know, I have to come back to you on that. Like, next year, it's a little bit easier, you could do the superintendent conference day on the 29th, and it doesn't affect students or the calendar much. I don't recall what this year's is. I will point out that we tried to not have to have everybody come back on January 2nd this year to get those extra 2 days. So that was also, Mike, one of the considerations in developing the calendar. In order to do that, you kind of, are limited where else you can do something with.
Is this for approval tonight, or a first
No, it's
reading?
for a first review. We'll approve it at the next board meeting, unless you have, something has to change in between. I do, the other thing I haven't done yet, but the principals are in the process of, because of the new regulation about not the number of days, we have to have 180 school days minimum, but it's also connected to an hourly minimum through the formula that the state has given us. So they've given us this wonderful spreadsheet that I shared with our principals to try to go through every day of our calendar to see how many hours it adds up to, because in the elementary school, you have to have 900 hours over the 180 days, and at the high school and middle school, you have to have 990 hours. So we're in the process of making sure that our calendar fits in with those regulations, which is actually it's a better way than it has been, because in the previous regulations, those shortened weeks, you got to be careful with those, because they wouldn't count the days if you had not enough hours in that week, and you could be penalized with state aid if you don't meet the requirement. So.
Will that eventually replace number of days?
No, you're still gonna be 180 minimum,
Job it is.
but you just have to make sure that within that 180, because we have some one-session days within there, and so within that 180 days, you have to make sure the total aggregate is 990 at the middle school and high school hours. But they don't count passing time, they don't count non-instructional time, like lunch time, so you have to figure all those things out within that hour stuff, so, yeah.
Will that analysis be done by the time we
Yeah.
get the next?
Yeah, I think we're gonna be fine. I'm pretty sure we are, because we go 182 student days, so we have those extra 2 days. But I'll have that ready for next time.
Thank you. Any
If they
questions?
determine that there wasn't a sufficient number of hours in a particular school day or week, is there an appellate process there? Can there be an ongoing exchange of information and dispute with the regulators as to their calculation of hours?
I suppose there could be, yeah.
That's good.
I mean, fortunately or unfortunately for us, the amount of state aid we get per day is probably not that much, so that's the worst penalty we would get.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. I want to take a few moments before I put before you the resolutions. As Dr. Montesano referred to earlier, we have a number of retirements on tonight's agenda. We have 9 professional staff and 1 clerical, and I want to just take a moment and speak briefly about each of them, thanks to their principals' input as well. We have a cumulative 265 years of service to our district in these retirees. I'm going to start off in our elementary school. We have 1 teacher, Valerie Palacio, who has been with us for 24 years, working in the primary grades, specifically first and second, and really has been an integral part of the ongoing curriculum development in the elementary school, as well as a respected colleague. In the middle school, We have Paul Fafaro, who's been in our district for 31 years as an art teacher. Primarily, the 31 years has been in the middle school, and he's really helped to cultivate a love of creating art in our students, and he's really helped students to appreciate art across the scope of time. Miss Vicky Crease has worked in our school district for 29 years as a special ed teacher, most recently with our 8th graders, and she really has a comprehensive understanding of academic development. She shows a commitment to helping our students become self-reliant and really prepares them for high school. Miss Joyce Myers has been our school's home and careers teacher for 28 years. She works in the middle school across all 3 years and therefore is connected to every student in the building. In addition, she has worked in our High School WISE program and has extended her influence there. Dr. Joyce Vastola has been our middle school psychologist most recently, but has been in the district for 19 years. Joyce works with our students, parents, faculty, and community at large. There are few within this building who have not benefited from Joyce's expertise. The energy and passion she has for helping and making a difference has helped us become a community.
And she's just a wonderful person.
In our high school, we have Mrs. Karen Coons. She's been here for 21 years as a special education teacher, primarily in the high school, in our resource room. She has really provided our students with support in academic classes and helping students develop habits and approaches that make them successful in college and beyond. Miss Mandy Gersten has been in Bronxville for 31 years as a mathematics teacher. She has taught all levels of math across the high school curriculum and has seen the department through some major transitions, such as the implementation of the Common Core standards. Her passion for mathematics is contagious. Mr. Brian Parisi has been in the school district for 33 years as a physical education teacher. He's taught primarily in the middle and high schools. He's been instrumental in the development and delivery of our Project Adventure curriculum. He also has served as a coach of multiple sports, supporting our students on and off the field. And Miss Georgiana Stewart has been in Bronxville for 18 years as our life skills special education teacher. She opened our inaugural life skills class and has made a positive impact on students, families, and colleagues with her expertise, compassion, and care. And last but not least is Terry Caparo, who has been in the district for 31 years, the last 19 assisting in our facilities and buildings and grounds office, and has been integral in all of us having our pictures on our IDs and having our parking permits readily available, and always with a smile. So it's with great respect that I put before you their resignations for the purpose of retirement. So the first round, A through M, speaks to our certified staff, which includes 9 of those retirements, as well as a few overages to cover a more recent retirement. We have 1 leave replacement that we are anticipating starting in the beginning of February due to a Family Medical Leave Act. A new teacher aide that is replacing a resignation, as well as other personnel items that include special other stipend revisions, co-curricular stipend revisions, some new coaches, a revised winter coach roster, as well as our initial spring roster for the spring. So I put before you items A through X.
Great. Can I get a motion to approve items A through X? A second?
Second.
Any comments? I'd just like to echo Rachel's comments and express on behalf of the board and school our gratitude for everyone's long service and wish them luck in their retirement. So, All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll begin by talking about how our current year budget's doing. It's been tighter than previous budgets, and I anticipate it being tighter throughout the rest of the year. Right now, I'm projecting a surplus of just under $300,000. I imagine we'll get higher than that throughout the rest of the year, but probably not all that much higher. I think kind of flood recovery stuff and things that may not be covered in the end put a little bit of a strain on that. But we'll know more as we get through the next couple of months. Again, it's mostly driven by revenue, and expenditures are going to be tight. Nothing we haven't dealt with before, though. And looking forward to next year's budget, the final piece of our cap came out, and that's the inflation figure, and it's 2%. So we're forecasting our cap to be close to 4% for next year. Now, our budget probably won't get close to that for the tax levy, but that's where it is.
Dan, on previous versions of this, we used to have a category for, I'll call it an interest reserve account or
Debt service?
yeah. Is it on, am I missing it?
No, I did not put it on this year. I can have it next month or revise this.
Because that's one of the accounts we're using to mitigate the
Sure.
expenses on the bond
Yep.
referendum. Thank you.
I'll throw it on next time or revise this one and get it around.
Any other questions? We have to, now that we have the action items.
I have two financial action items. The first is resolution to increase the budget by the check we've gotten so far to cover some of the expenses for the September 25th flood. We're anticipating more, but these are the proceeds we've received already, and this will alleviate somewhat some of the pressure we're seeing, but most of it's going to serve to pay the cleanup crew. We have an invoice sitting out there for them. And then we're still working with the insurance company to perhaps generate some more, but that'll take a little time. So, and B is a foundation grant supporting the high school musical in the construction of, I guess it's Seymour.
I thought it was Audrey.
It's Audrey.
It's Audrey.
It's Audrey.
Isn't it Audrey?
It's Audrey.
Audrey.
Audrey?
But I thought,
Oh, that's right. Seymour is the guy who feeds Audrey. That's right. So that's $1,300. As always with the foundation, thank you very much, and we appreciate it. So with that, I'd ask for financial action items A and B to be approved.
Move.
Any discussion or questions?
Just a question, why do we have to approve if we're receiving money that you're adding to
It's
the
a
budget?
donation. Any donation.
No, the first
Sure.
one.
Flood money.
First one.
Oh, a flood money? We need a resolution to increase the budget. It's a two-step process. If we didn't increase the budget, we would just take that in as revenue, and our expenditures would still be limited to the original budget. So so once the board declares the emergency, which we did back in October, that's the first trigger and this comes and helps close the loop.
So the emergency declaration allows us to,
Increase the
by
budget
board
eventually.
resolution, increase the budget.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? Okay, thank you. Dan, I think you're still...
Moving on to facilities update, a lot going on. Roy and I have had a number of meetings this week regarding both Chambers Field and then also the Phase 2 of the project, and then also we met today with a consulting engineer for stormwater management. And I'll start with Phase 1, which includes Chambers Field and the ceilings in the playrooms. We notified the board before the break, or right at the break, that we've, once they started, there was some discovered conditions that required a couple of change orders that were significant. You know, it's 20% of a bid for the project. They've been vetted by both LAN and Savin, and it still brings the project in below the original budget of about $140,000. And you know, we did a good job, I think, expressing concern with Savin and LAN that, you know, look, 20% change orders is not what we want to see. But there were reasons for those discovered conditions in that area, and most notably the condition of the concrete on the ceilings, that they felt warranted those. So the board will be seeing those in the future. They're not ready yet, but those are the estimated amounts. Chambers Field, we had a nice meeting this morning that had both the track installer, the turf manufacturer, Jim Mitchell was there, and Dave Ryan with, you know, we went through logistics for the track and the turf, and looks like we'll be going down from 6-lane track to a 4-lane track, so it's going to be exactly 400 meters, which Jim Mitchell and Dave Ryan thought was extremely important. And you know, that was their number one concern, that and the softness of the track. So, you know, they're getting their, they were heard by the track installer. And timing-wise, the turf's going to go in first. Weather permitting, we anticipate that going in during the month of March. And then the track going in April. And right now we're targeting April 30th or before. You know, we made it clear that, you know, we want it as soon as possible. And the turf will be ordered by probably by the end of the month, or if not the end of next week. And it should be here within 3 weeks after that. And we said we want it here. We want it. We don't care if snow piles up on it. We want it sitting on the asphalt on the track, ready to go in when the weather turns. So they're well aware of that. And you know, a lot's been done. I think I sent a memo around updating the board on what has been done so far. A lot of it is drainage and fencing and tree removal and some demolition of batting cages and things like that, and concrete work with the curbing and drainage. So we feel that, you know, they've made some decent progress. So now it's, you know, we're going to get snow this weekend. We'll see how long and how hard it comes over the next month or two before we can get up and moving again. But our goal is not to let the contractor point to weather when it's not weather. You know, if we get a decent late February, early March, we want to hit the ground running. That's our goal.
So Dan, I have to ask,
Sure.
I'm sorry. So is the issue, you want it to be a certain temperature for a period of time?
Yeah, especially with the track installation, it's got to be warm.
They told us that they need about a 3-week window
Yeah.
of temperature.
Okay, of temperature.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you think February is risky?
Well, that's why turf goes in first. Turf
The
is
track has
yeah.
to, if I remember correctly from the meeting today, Dan, I think he said the had to be 38, above 38 degrees in order to, the ground has to be above 38 degrees in order to put
Ground.
the track adhesive down and
Okay.
such.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I think that was correct, right?
Yeah.
And then the turf, there's a similar, the type of adhesive they use, they can use a different type if it's colder, so there's more flexibility with the turf than there is with the track.
Dan and Roy, I think it's important to point out that, as I understand it, the decision to go from 6 lanes to 4 such that the track itself would be the 440 or whatever it's supposed to
400
be.
meters, yes.
The 400 meters. That's the result of consultations that you had with the track community, including the coaches, right?
Correct.
And-
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to point out that there
would
was
agree.
an outreach there, and the track program, including the coaches and the track parents, their input was sought and obtained, because certainly it's valuable, it's certainly a successful program.
Sure.
So
And it makes a lot of sense to do it.
I appreciate it.
For a lot of reasons. Having both of them at the meeting today, both coaches at the meetings, it was very helpful. And just to clarify, the oval before lanes, the straightaway will still be 6 rather than 8, just so you know.
Well, I appreciate the effort to include that constituency.
However, residents who are now trying to run timed miles on the field will see their times increase.
Another communication opportunity for us.
Yeah, I don't have a time for the mile, Dan, so I don't care.
I can drive it very quickly.
We also met today with the consulting engineer that the board hired just to look over the plan and kind of dissect what happened on September 25th over on Meadow Avenue. They're going to prepare a detailed report, but Roy and I got some highlights today. They're enthusiastically supportive of the pipe we want to run from the Meadow Avenue structure to the diversion structure to feed the pumps from that side. They're going to give us an analysis of what pumps 3 and 4 will give us. Pump 5 is going to be a redundant pump if one of the other 4 are not working. But the preliminary estimate was that it's that should do the trick.
They will also be consulting with the town
Yeah.
engineers. Yeah, they saw some things in their analysis that they want to share with the town. I don't know where the pipe leads to, but down on the town end of things, they wanted to talk to them about that. And they'll also be consulting with land engineers who will be designing the new drain to go as well.
Initially, they wanted to hook it up to the tanks under Hayes Field, and we very politely told them we have no intention of digging up Hayes Field this summer.
That would be bad.
So the diversion structure will work just fine.
And we
It'll
won't be
shoot it
digging-
right to the pumps.
We won't be digging up the new playground either.
No.
No.
It'll go right along the sidewalk and then around the trees to there's a manhole with a diversion structure out there.
Have you all seen these notices on Tricia Murray's door? Like these notes from these
Playground,
classes
yeah.
about the children's from the children about the playground and how much they love it.
Yeah.
And one's about a buddy bench. We got to work
Yeah.
on the buddy bench.
Working on the sign, because they're designing artwork and the sign already made.
I think those are great. I saw those walking in today. I was that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's part of a PBL.
That's great. So the playground's very popular.
Yes, yes.
That's all I have.
When will the pumps be here?
Last we heard was April.
April.
Is there a reason you say that? I mean, are we expecting delays?
Well, first we heard was November, then
it was
February,
November.
and now April. So
What's causing the delay?
just the sourcing of parts and manufacturing. They're manufactured out in Bakersfield, California, and then all the parts have to get there. They put it together, and then they truck it east.
Okay, no action items, right?
No action items for facilities at this time.
So I think the next one is, Connie, can you bring up the appointment of the
I haven't looked at the website.
legal? So, the board has gone through a process whereby we've interviewed a number of attorneys to represent the school, and we've decided to make a change. And so tonight we have a resolution to formalize that change, and this is one of the law firms that we interviewed and agreed upon moving forward with. So fortunately, I think members of the administration have had previous experience with this law firm and are happy to be engaging them, so. Can I get a motion to accept the resolution with regard to the engagement of the attorney?
Move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Thank you. Policy, any committee reports? Excuse me, policy reading.
Policy. So this is up, the policies, they were on the first reading at the previous board meeting, now we're up for a second reading and adoption. You have a list of them in front of you. Having received no comments since the last board meeting, we put them back up the way they were last time. So that's what we're asking for, to accept these policies, revisions.
Connie, can we do it in one fell swoop? Yes. Okay. Resolution to accept the half dozen or so policies that were presented to us at the last meeting, 8, and presented to us again tonight. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Thank you. Any committee reports?
And we need to rescind one of them.
Sorry. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution regarding the rescinding of 5465?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you. I'm not aware of any committee meetings. Does anybody have anything they want to report with regard to committee meetings? Action calendar, we have a workshop 2 weeks from now or so,
The budget?
budget workshop,
Budget.
9 a.m. on Saturday, the February the 2nd, and then a board meeting.
It's really important.
And we do also have a strategies and curriculum committee coming up next week, I believe, right?
Okay, great. At this point, I would like to invite members of the public to come up if they have anything to comment on.
Strategy and curriculum
Dr. Katz?
committee, representing committee. Oh, committee. Yeah, it's their committee.
He's not the public.
Wednesday morning.
Thank you. My name is Dr. David Katz. I'm the president of the Bronxville Teachers Association and a teacher of social studies in the middle school. First, a thank you to the board and administration for their work with the Bronxville Teachers Association to negotiate and approve a retirement incentive that was, depending on how you look at it, either very successful or, well, bittersweet. There are lots of wonderful things about being the president of the Bronxville Teachers Association. I get to represent the finest educators anywhere. And 9 of them and one of our clerical members have decided to take advantage of the negotiated retirement incentives. And we are going to be collectively missing out on 265 collected years of magic. I get to spend time walking the halls of the school, in and out of classrooms. I've been to each of these people's classrooms and offices to simply be part of what's happening in their rooms. Passion, joy, expertise, professionalism, skill, and love and care for our students and community and families. This is an amazing list of educators that will be missing a great deal. Teachers Association, of course, will be celebrating their retirements at a dinner later this year, but for now, for the purpose of the public, I, on behalf of the Bronxville Teachers Association, wish great congratulations and enormous success in retirement to Karen and Paul, and Mandy and Vicky, and Joyce and Valerie, and Brian and Georgiana, and Joyce and Terry. This is an amazing list of people. I will personally miss them because they are my friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Katz.
Anybody else from the public? Seeing none, motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.